Kalia Davis is injured. Talanoa Hufanga may be coming back. The 49ers have a new wide receiver out at practice. We're going to talk about all that and more in this episode of 49ers Cutback.
From the alley-oops at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way. From off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Bad news for the San Francisco 49ers as defensive tackle Kalia Davis has been ruled out for at least half the season with a knee injury. A knee injury that's going to be requiring surgery. That was according to Kyle Shanahan, who just had his presser recently. And so the 49ers now go back to the drawing board with who's going to be at the end of the roster when it comes to defensive tackle. Kalia Davis just had his best game as a professional in the NFL in the preseason matchup versus the Tennessee Titans. It was the most dynamic. It was the best version of Kalia Davis that we've seen. He started showing that explosiveness. In fact, I was going to do an episode where I talked about he finally showed flashes of the DJ Jones comparison that people have been making for him, that Chris Kasarik had made for him, that John Lynch had talked about. And now Kalia Davis is not going to be helping the San Francisco 49ers initially to start the season. The good news is with some of the NFL's new rules when it comes to the injured reserve, he has the opportunity to come back. A lot of times you would have to place a player like this on injured reserve and they would be done for the season. Or you could carry them, but then you would have to keep them on your 53-man roster until the day after you made decisions, and then you could bring him back. Luckily, the 49ers don't have to do that. They can put him on the IR, and they can bring him back during the season because the league now allows you to do that with two players during the season. Kyle Shanahan did confirm during his press conference that Kalia Davis would be one of those players that gets that designation. So we haven't heard a confirmation on a guy like Ambry Thomas, what is going to happen with him with the broken forearm, but we did hear about Kalia Davis. So Kalia Davis suffered a knee injury at some point during the Tennessee Titans game. He was unaware of it. The 49ers were unaware of it. But at some point yesterday, they found out that Kalia Davis had an injury. So this is a shot that the 49ers definitely didn't want to have. A position of depth for the 49ers, that is for sure, when it comes to defensive tackle. But now the depth being shaken a little bit. Kalia Davis right now, I think everyone was starting to feel confident with this 49ers defensive tackle rotation that was going to see Javon Hargrave, Malik Collins, Jordan Elliott, and Kevin Givens, and then a Kalia Davis who could be an absolute disruptor. He was playing in the backfield so much in the game against the Tennessee Titans. It was a great showing. And so Davis now is not going to be a part of this 49ers team for half the season. And the 49ers are going to have to find another answer. They're going to have to find another player that could step up and take those reps because the 49ers do like to keep 5 defensive tackles a part of their roster. So that way they have the rotation. They have the players in the games that can get things done. So that opens the door for some other guys, a Shaquille Brown, for instance, a young guy like Evan Anderson. Those two guys didn't have the best showings against the Tennessee Titans, but now have an opportunity to get extra reps. A veteran like T.Y. McGill that did not play great against the Titans, jumped off sides, made some mistakes that weren't exactly the greatest, but he's going to be another guy that's going to have an opportunity. And maybe the 49ers look around the league and try to find another defensive tackle that could be available. I think that they're going to have to address it. And what's up, Emi? How's it going? Says, why is it that some guys that never play in an actual game are always hurt? Maybe if they played an actual game, they couldn't get hurt. They wouldn't get hurt. It's troubling. I mean, Kalia Davis, of course, started his career after getting drafted out of UCF. He was dealing with a knee injury already. The 49ers elected to keep him on NFI the entire season. He did come back at the end of that rookie season and practice for 3 weeks, and they were very impressed. But you're right. He started his entire career coming off an injury. Last year, he was with the team. He suffered injury here and there, missed a lot of training camp. So this is one of the things that they've had to deal with Kalia Davis has been some of the injuries that have popped up. I think the difference between this one compared to the ones that he had previously were just the mere fact that he just came off a tremendous showing. Everyone just saw that there is a potential that Kalia Davis could be a big-time player for this football team. But it's disheartening when you have players that consistently get injured. And unfortunately, not only do the 49ers have some players that are consistently getting injured, but they have a lot of players who are currently injured. And this is something that they've been having to deal with. So if you're just joining, Kalia Davis is going to miss half the season, suffered a knee injury in the game versus Tennessee Titans that will require surgery. And so the 49ers are going to use one of their key IR spots on him, and they're going to figure this thing out. But please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe, please give it a 5-star rating. And if you're going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From the preseason NFL to college kicking off, Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor pool for the upcoming season. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. And for your first time Bet Online, the game starts here. So thanks, everyone, for joining me. Of course, all questions are open. Kalia Davis, unfortunately, is going to be missing the first part of the season. That was the blockbuster announcement that Kyle Shanahan made during his presser today. Now, there was some other news that came out, not just about Kalia Davis on the injury front, but also Talanoa Hufanga. Talanoa Hufanga, Kyle Shanahan had mentioned a couple weeks ago that potentially when it got time for the joint practices, which are now null and void. If you haven't heard that already, joint practices are no longer happening between the 49ers and New Orleans Saints. But this was the time period that Hufanga was expected to potentially come back. And he's going to be meeting with his doctor on Thursday. There's a potential that Talanoa Hufanga could be cleared and then come back to the 49ers. So Hufanga getting close to getting back, that is good news for the 49ers. And that's exactly what the 49ers need, some good news right now. Now, the good thing also that Kyle Shanahan has expressed is besides Ambry Thomas and Kalia Davis, most of the players that are injured are looking to return within 3 to 10 days. So the 49ers dealing with a lot of injuries, a vast amount of injuries, but injuries that aren't as significant, like Hufanga coming back, but Kalia Davis as well. And what's up to my guy, Spy Nick Danger in chat says, go Niners and go Ant. Always good to have Spy Nick Danger in the house. And what is up, Mr. Corey? It's not good news that Kalia Davis comes off his best performance of his entire career and ends up missing half a season. That's going to be tough. But if the 49ers could get back Talanoa Hufanga, potentially that would help this football team a lot. They definitely got good play from safety. And I know Matt Maiocco put out a piece today talking about how good George Odom is, but there's a difference between what Gio's been doing on the field and what you're going to get from Talanoa Hufanga once he's cleared. So that could be a huge bright spot for the 49ers coming up this week. We got bad news right now to start the week that Kalia Davis is going to miss. He's going to be put on IR. The hope is that he's going to come back halfway through the year once he's recovered from surgery. But what a lift it could be if Talanoa Hufanga is cleared and capable to come back and help this football team. If he comes back now, he's going to get the practice and necessary work to be able to be ready week one. And we know that was his goal. That's what the 49ers want. And part of the reason they haven't went out and signed a free agent safety. So really good stuff. So I'm excited about that potential of Talanoa Hufanga coming back and being cleared on Thursday. The other news was, of course, we had reported it last week, talked about it a little bit, but Robbie Chosen-Anderson was officially signed today. So he basically had agreed in principle to the 49ers. They waited to turn in the paperwork to get through the preseason game, and then they made a necessary roster move. And that necessary roster move was the fact that Frank Darby, who had a great 30-yard catch in the game, was waived, and he was waived with an injury designation. So injury takes out Darby. He's not going to be on this San Francisco 49ers team, but Robbie Chosen-Anderson is, and Kyle Shanahan said he was excited about having him out there, that he liked seeing him. He understood the offense because he spent time with Miami last year. So he's going to be out there, and I was present. In fact, I got video of Robbie Anderson trying out for the 49ers last Wednesday. He looked good. He was getting out of his breaks pretty well. And, he's going to be hopefully competing to help this football team. They need a true X right now with Brandon Ayuk out, and Robbie Chosen-Anderson can do that. I don't know what his official name is, but I'm just going to keep calling him Robbie Chosen-Anderson. He can do that. And so they bring in a guy who has some concerns potentially with locker room and some of that stuff. But I'm guessing that Kyle Shanahan has talked to Mike McDaniel, asked about who he is as a person. They've got an understanding there. Plus, when you have a locker room like the 49ers have, you just don't worry about those guys too much. But Spidey Danger says the young players are looking good. Young players are looking good. And now the 49ers may have to count on even more young players to step up with Kalia Davis's injury. With him missing half the season, Evan Anderson is a guy that's going to have to step up. Shaquille Brown is going to have to step up. And I know a lot of people have been extremely high on Evan Anderson coming out of college. And I don't think we've seen it yet. I don't think we've seen that guy that could step up and take this role. The big difference between Evan Anderson compared to what you were getting from Kalia Davis was a penetrator. He was getting in the backfield. He's a disruptor. Evan Anderson is not built that way. What he's built for is being a guy that can stuff the run and play two gap. And he didn't do that very great against Tennessee. So we'll see. Maybe Evan Anderson, Shaquille Brown can make an impact. Maybe T.Y. McGill can turn things around. But I think the 49ers have a few defensive line question marks now. Number one, defensive tackle, I thought was shored up. They were 5 strong with Kalia Davis. Now that's not the case. And I also think they've got question marks when it comes to defensive end when you get to the depth portion of defensive end. Alex Barrett had a decent game, but you're not really going to count on Alex Barrett being your 4th defensive end as part of a full rotation for the 49ers. Robert Beal didn't have his best game. In fact, he struggled at times. So maybe Robert Beal could get better. But I think the 49ers have a question mark. They might need to bring in some guys, veteran defensive tackles that are around the league, potentially on the open market, or even bring in a defensive end. There's still some good ones. Yannick Ngakoue still out there. I don't know if he's too expensive. Carl Lawson, he's available. Is he too expensive? 49ers might have to go that route because right now we don't know what we're going to get from Robert Beal Jr. At least we haven't seen the potential really take hold. So defensive line went from defensive interior line being answered to now we've got another question mark when it comes to defensive tackle number 5. So 49ers are going to have some decisions to make, and it seems like decisions has been something they've been dealing with the entire offseason. So Kalia Davis kind of puts a little bit of a damper on what was a great performance from the preseason. And that's unfortunate that Kalia Davis isn't going to be able to be out there early on and help this football team, because I think he was starting to come onto the scene. It was going to add an aspect. And if you guys thought Kalia Davis looked good, wait until you guys get a glimpse of Jordan Elliott. Jordan Elliott was having a fantastic training camp. So even though this is disheartening that Kalia Davis got hurt, remember the 4 guys ahead of him are pretty good. In fact, Kevin Givens played really well in the preseason game. And once you guys see Jordan Elliott and Malik Collins, they are really, really good as well. So though it's an injury we didn't want to see happen, you don't want to have players that you lose for a significant amount of time. You do, in fact, have guys that can step in and make plays for your football team ahead of it. And so that's what's important. Spidey Danger says, as bad as 2022 draft was, 2023 draft looking good. So the 49ers have had some hit and misses when it comes to the draft. That is for sure. They've had some hit and misses when it comes to undrafted free agents. One thing we know, though, this roster's loaded. They use trade and free agency to build their defensive line. They use free agency to build their cornerback room. An update on Isaac Yedem, because we did not see Yedem, was that he did roll his ankle during a walkthrough last week. So Isaac Yedem was supposed to be out 2 weeks. So it's been a week. Maybe next week Isaac Yedem could come back. And so we'll see. So it's good news for the 49ers. Like Kyle said, we got guys within 3 to 10 days are going to be back. We expect almost all of these guys to be back for the regular season game opener. The only guys right now that are out are Ambry Thomas, who's going to be out for a significant amount of time. We'll see what the roster decision is on him. And then Kalia Davis now, who's going to be put on IR, and he's going to be designated to be brought back during the season using the NFL's new rule that benefits the 49ers now. So that's really important that we remember that Kalia Davis is not out for the year. He's going to help this team eventually. But right now, they've got to find a short-term answer, and we'll see what they end up doing in the short term. Spiting Danger says, what will the 49ers do if Aiyuk holds out half the season? Well, he's not going to hold out half the season because he can't lose those checks. He needs to make sure he gets in there so he gets paid. And I know right now we've got a lot of posturing on both sides as they're trying to work towards getting a contract agreement or a trade done. But Brandon Aiyuk, once he gets past 6 games, there will no longer be an accrued season for him. So he can't let that happen. That would toll another season, and he would be under control for the San Francisco 49ers. He wouldn't be able to choose his destination and capitalize on free agency. So I think that probably once we get through the preseason, there's going to be that moment where the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk, if they haven't already agreed to a deal, come to a conclusion that works for both sides, whether that's he's playing on the 5th-year option because he doesn't want to be fined, or the 49ers, say that, hey, we're not going to trade you. This is a done deal. They're going to have to work something out. If you've seen what happened with Hassan Reddick demanded a trade, and the Jets just came out and said, look, we're not trading you. We traded for you. We expect you to be out here. You're going to be fined until you are out here on the field with your teammates. The 49ers could eventually have to take a hard stance with Brandon Aiyuk like that. Maybe they have behind closed doors. I don't know. But right now, that's part of the issue. And when you look at the trades and what's been offered for Brandon Aiyuk, part of the reason that teams don't do what the Jets did and trade for a guy like Reddick and not have a contract extension worked out is because you run into these sort of situations. So I don't expect Brandon Aiyuk to miss games, regular season games, even if he's playing on a 5th-year option for the San Francisco 49ers. So I know that, the Brandon Aiyuk thing is still sitting there, and eventually that's going to get worked out. But, they're going to have to make some other moves now. The 49ers are going to have to bring in some guys. I don't think, from what I've seen at training camp and what I saw in the Tennessee preseason game, and there still could be some things that change from the New Orleans game or even from what we see from the Raiders. But I don't think the 49ers would feel confident going into the season with the 5th defensive tackle right now being Evan Anderson or Shaquille Brown. I think those two guys have a lot of upside. They really do. They're young players with a lot of strength, a lot of upside, but they need more time to get together. They need more time to get some work. And so your option right now would be T.Y. McGill. And if you're going to roll with T.Y. McGill, we know we've seen the 49ers do that before, but you got to understand what you're going to get from T.Y. McGill. He's not going to improve the way those other two guys can. He can penetrate. He can get in the backfield. He can make plays. But he's going to absolutely give it up when it comes to the running game. He's going to get blown up in duo blocks. He's going to struggle against double teams. That's not his best avenue to help this 49ers football team. So I think the 49ers have to make a real decision about defensive tackle number 5 now. And it's crazy that we're talking about defensive tackle number 5, but we know how Chris Kasarik and the 49ers defense rotate through defensive linemen so much. So they're going to have to figure this thing out because right now, I think that's a position that they're definitely lacking in. And they have talent all over the place, but defensive tackle, I think, looked like it was a little bit more abundant than it is. So we'll see. Maybe Evan Anderson and Shaquille Brown can turn it around with more opportunity over the next couple of weeks. But I wouldn't be shocked if the 49ers don't bring in some defensive tackles to work out. They don't bring in a defensive end to potentially push Robert Beal Jr. Because one thing that kind of got glazed over because it happened on Friday was Austin Bryant was put on IR with an injury designation, and he was getting significant snaps at training camp. So the fact that he's gonna be gone as well, the 49ers defensive end room changed. Now you've got Alex Barrett. Okay. Sam Okuwanu has been dealing with injury. He hasn't been playing. We've seen him in and out of the lineup at training camp. He missed the preseason game. So they brought in Garvin, and he played pretty well in his first matchup. Maybe he'll have a shot. But I think the 49ers at defensive line definitely have some question marks that they need to get answered in this matchup moving forward. And I think that they're looking to get some guys. We've seen them have to go through wide receivers pretty consistently. And now, hopefully, Talanoa Hufanga will be back because we need Talanoa Hufanga. We need some good news for the 49ers as they still have some of the questions. Quest for Six says, who's out there at D end or D tackle? Yeah, that's a good question. So let me go ahead and I'll try to bring it up real quick and see who is available as far as free agents, as far as free agent edge rushers. I know for a fact when it comes to free agent edge rushers, you got oh geez, I just went blank. I was just saying him earlier, but we have Yannick Ngakoue. I know he's available. There's a couple other guys. Let's see. I'll bring it up right now so we can go ahead and go through the list real quick because there are some guys available that the 49ers could potentially bring in, and we've seen them we've seen these guys kind of go around the league and still be working out with other teams. I think Houston is available as well, if I remember right. Now, this is taking me a little bit longer than I anticipated, but there are some guys because I was looking at it earlier. So we get this list up. All right. We'll go edge rushers first because we do know that is a question mark. That's going to have to be figured out. So Carl Lawson is available. Yannick Ngakoue is available. Those two guys right away scream, pretty good players. Now the problem is, what are they going to cost? That's something to remember. If you're looking for a young guy who played in the system, Myjai Sanders, formerly of Cincinnati, he played in Houston last year. He's available. So that's another guy that's out there that potentially you got another young guy, Shaka Toney. Those guys are a little bit undersized. Justin Houston, defensive end. I know he's 35 years old, but that's a guy that could potentially be someone the 49ers would be interested in when it comes to edge. So edge, Justin Houston to me would be a guy I could see them potentially going to later on. Yannick Ngakoue, Carl Lawson. Lawson and Ngakoue have both been double-digit sack guys in their career, so those guys would make a lot of sense. Let's look at defensive tackle and see who's available out there on the open market. Hassan Ridgeway, but he's coming off an Achilles. He would definitely be somebody the 49ers would go with, so he could do that. So Hassan Ridgeway makes sense. Linval Joseph is a little bit older now, so that's the thing. Now you're starting to get into some of these guys that are really, really old. Not a lot of guys available on the open market that are younger that could help this 49ers football team. So Lawrence Guy, older, Al Woods, older. They're going to have to make some decisions there. So it might just be the young guys, and maybe they can find a guy in trade. But Hassan Ridgeway, Ross Blacklock, those are some of the guys the 49ers would have to potentially go with. So it ain't a huge list, is it? So they're not exactly the best there. Okay, let's see what we got here. What's up, DJ? Says, can you describe what happens at a walkthrough versus a regular practice? Yeah, so basically at a regular practice, you're going to work your full speed. You're going to have times where you go 11 on 11 and everyone goes full speed through practice. When you're going through a walkthrough, you're not doing that. You're basically going out and you're putting everyone in position and then you're slowly walking through the plays. Sometimes you'll go half speed, but you're just not putting any effort. No one's trying to make a tackle. You're basically just coaching it up. All right, everyone get into, this formation, whatever it is. And everyone gets in the formation. Defense, same thing. Line up in the right spots. Make sure that they're lined up correctly. And then they go through the motions, walk through it to see what it looks like. It's a way to go through mentally, some mental checks without having to do it physically. So that's basically what they're doing there. What's up, Callie? How's it going? It says Kalia Davis was looking like DJ Jones out there. Damn shame. Yeah, that's the crazy part. Was I was literally going to be doing a video talking about the flashes finally showed the DJ Jones potential, and then we unfortunately get this news that Kalia Davis is out, and it's tough because you're getting hopeful. There was players in the game that got everyone excited by some of the splash plays they made, and Kalia Davis was one of the leaders in the clubhouse. Kalia Davis, I thought, had the best games of the guys who flashed. Kalia Davis, D. Winters, Malik Mustafa, those guys absolutely flashed in that game. And unfortunately, Kalia Davis deals with a knee injury. So, and it doesn't look like there's a lot of options out there on the open market when it comes to defensive tackle. I don't know what the 49ers are going to do. It might be one of these other guys. Maybe it's a T.Y. McGill that they're going to have to figure this thing out, because there's just not a lot of guys out there that could potentially help this football team, and that makes it tough. You get into this part of the season and you're looking for guys that can help your football team, and we'll see if they can sign someone. Maybe they will go get, a big defensive tackle like Hassan Ridgeway. Maybe it's time to actually go that route. I think it's tough. Quest for Six says, Juju Smith-Schuster, sorry if I misspelled this for depth, he's only 27 years old, and is come Tay Martin isn't a real option to make this team. And how come Tay Martin isn't a real option to make this team? Yeah, you know what, Juju, I don't know what's going to happen with Juju. The report is that he's not completely healthy. I think the interesting part about Juju, because I think he's a very good wide receiver, is he wouldn't be your traditional X receiver like Brandon Ayuk. He would play, more in the slot, which you've got now Jawan Jennings, you've got Deebo Samuel that plays in there a lot. Now you got Ricky Pearsall. I think you would be adding upon where you already have a lot of guys. And so I don't know if Juju's a legitimate option for the 49ers. I do think he's still a good player. And at 27 years old, he's pretty talented. So I think that there's an opportunity for Juju somewhere. If there was an injury in San Francisco, then I would say Juju makes sense. And we'll see what happens with him. I think he's a good player. When it comes to Tay Martin, I think Tay Martin officially made himself at least enter the conversation after his performance against the Tennessee Titans. The problem with Tay was he didn't practice much at all at training camp. He was dealing with the hamstring, missed a lot of practice, and that really hurt him not be able to get those reps. The good thing for him is the young guys have missed too. The bad part is the veterans that he's really competing with, the Trent Taylors, the Chris Conleys, both of them played well against Tennessee. Chris Conley played fantastic. I think Tay Martin did a good job, and if he can build on this, then he's got a shot. But it's going to be tough. It's an uphill climb for him to be able to potentially make this 49ers roster. I like Tay Martin. I think if you would have caught that ball down the field from Brandon Allen, I think he would have been the offensive player of the game. But there are some plays in that game where he ran the wrong route. He didn't do as good a job blocking. So some of that could be because he was injured so long. We'll see. But I would like to see him get in the mix. We'll see what he can do. He's got a couple of games to try to prove it. And right here from Sacred Intuition, no, Davis was looking good in there. He was. And that's what hurt so bad, is he looked so great. He looked so promising. The dynamic ability he was using to get upfield. That one play, he got skinny, went between two defensive linemen, got upfield, and disrupted the flow in the backfield. And there were more plays that if he was less aggressive. So one thing about Kalia Davis is he's actually over aggressive. Sometimes it gets too much depth. It gets too vertical in his rush. That if he wouldn't have got as vertical, he'd have blown up even more plays. So Kalia Davis is a disruptor. I think Kyle Shanahan and the front office is excited about him. I think the coaching staff is excited about him, and he's eventually going to come back and make some moves for this 49ers team. But now they're going to have to wait until halfway through the year, which is really unfortunate. It's unfortunate that they're going to have to do that, because I think he could have been an impact player early on in this season, and a full rotation would have benefited the 49ers, having 5 legitimate guys they could feel comfortable with. And he's got a little bit more explosiveness than Kevin Givens. Givens is explosive enough, but Kalia Davis' athleticism jumps off the screen. So, yeah, this one hurt. This one hurt and cut deep. 49ers losing a guy like that is unfortunate, because I think he could have made an impact on the football team, and now we're not going to know. So the news right now is Kalia Davis is suffered a knee injury against Tennessee. He's going to have surgery that's going to require him to miss half the season. At some point, the 49ers will bring him back. Kyle Shanahan revealed they're going to use one of those IR spots designated for return for Kalia Davis. So the new rule by the NFL works out for the 49ers in this case. Davis will be coming back halfway through the year. Talanoa Hufanga will be meeting with his doctor this week and could get cleared on Thursday. So there's a chance that we could hear about Talanoa Hufanga being out at practice later on this week. I would say it's probably more likely that he ends up practicing next week. I don't expect him to play in the preseason at all, but it would put him on the right trajectory to be ready for week 1, which could be absolutely huge. And then More news is Robbie Chosen's officially out there. And if you liked Frank Darby and his performance in the game against the Tennessee Titans, unfortunately, Darby is gone. Darby was waived with an injury designation, meaning he is gone. So it's tough. It really is. And Quest for Six says, I saw a lot of overly aggressiveness over running plays, causing way too many missed tackles. Thoughts? Yes, there was a lot of eagerness. So there were 49ers players that are looking to make big plays, and they were a little too eager, a little too aggressive. And so they took themselves out of plays. They didn't make the proper reads and play it exactly how they're supposed to. And so you're right. That definitely happened. I think these guys will calm down and ease in. The good thing is the coach has got a lot of coaching tape that they're going to be able to help these guys get a little bit better. And the thing is, as long as you're aggressive and eager, you can help a player get better on technique and skill. Those things you can be fixed. It's willingness that often is a struggle to teach. If someone's not willing to make a play, it's tougher to teach that. So, yeah, overall, I mean, I think that's something that people could be concerned about. But I think overall it's going to be a good one for the 49ers. I think they're going to be just okay. Steve-O says no tackling in practice leads to arm tackles as well. It's definitely something that is different that hurts. If you're not tackling consistently at practice, it can be a problem. As a coach, I was one that didn't do a lot of tackling in practice with my guys. I taught form tackling, taught them, proper technique. We did a lot of thud. We would do some legit tackling during scrimmage drills. But as far as individual drills, we try to keep it a little bit more tempered. And you're right. As you're adjusting through the season, you will get better and better at tackling as you do it more. And so that could definitely be a reason why they didn't tackle so well. I think also some of it is some of the lanes that they were staying in. They weren't doing as good. They were over pursuing. That's always an issue. But you're right. If you're not tackling consistently at practice, at least arm tackling, and some of the collective bargaining agreement just makes it tough for these players and coaches to get better at tackling. So it's something they're going to have to work on for sure. Quest for Six says, please tell me Chosen Anderson is not a replacement for BA or for sure BA trade. Seeing this in some reports. No, it's not. This has, I think, less to do with BA as far as trade or replacement, and more so that they just need someone right now. And they're preparing just in case. You got to have a bona fide X receiver. They've had so many injuries at the position. They haven't been able to get Ricky Pearsall consistent reps there. They haven't been able to get Jacob Cowing very many reps. They've just had guys coming in and out of the lineup. Then they got a guy like Malik Turner that came in, and he was doing fantastic. And then he went down with an injury. You get Frank Darby in, and then now he's hurt. So they've had some injuries to some of those guys that they've brought in, and that's been a real problem. But I think this has little or nothing to do with Aiyuk, more so than they need him during practice to fill that role. I don't think he's a replacement, and I don't think it means a trade of Brandon Aiyuk is imminent, because the 49ers have been pretty consistent with all the reports that I've seen, which makes sense, that they want a veteran wide receiver back in return. And right now, that's been one of the main holdups with Pittsburgh. They have no one they're offering back. And the 49ers got to get something back so that way they can go ahead and find a veteran receiver, because they're not going into the season with the X receiver position looking the way it is. So I don't think that's what it is. I think this is a depth move. Get Robbie Chosen Anderson out there. Let him help your football team. He's still got a little bit there. Was a guy who had a 1,000-yard season in 2020. Do I think he's the answer at wide receiver? No. But you've got to get yourself through the preseason, and you've got to start preparing for the Jets. And we don't know. Will Brandon Aiyuk end up holding out? We don't know that. And so you just got to ensure yourself that you're going to have guys, and the 49ers are trying to do that the best they possibly can. And that's never easy, and that's never an easy position to be in, as a football team, is just the unknown of who's going to be out there for me and who's going to be making the play. So yeah, Robbie Anderson is going to be one of those guys. Kenny says, in the old days, training camp was vicious. Dudes would pound each other. I used to go to training camp up in Rockland, and then eventually I went to training camp in Stockton, which is, in my backyard at UOP. And yeah, they had tough practices, 2-a-days. They would get after it in the heat, and they would be physical and lots of hitting and aggressiveness. And so it's definitely a little bit different. And, some of that's the players. They've wanted more of these things. They want to be less beat up. And that's how the league is moving. And that's just the way it deals. Quest for Six says, rumor is now Pittsburgh offering $28 million a year. head spinning with all these reports. It's tough to keep track of. I don't know what's true at this point. The one thing I do know is the 49ers had at least negotiated with a few teams about the potential of Brandon Aiyuk being traded, and there was a two-parter. They had to give the compensation back to the 49ers that they wanted, and Brandon Aiyuk had to deal with a long-term extension. They haven't been able to get that done. Either one party or the other can't get it done. New England and Cleveland offered a package the 49ers liked. They offered Brandon Aiyuk enough money. He didn't want to go there. With Pittsburgh, it seems like they haven't been offered the package they want, so they're not going to accept it, but Aiyuk likes the money. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm kind of on a wait-and-see approach at this point to see what ultimately gets offered. What's up, Kenny? Glad you're in chat. Callie says, Mike Conley, who is really good on special teams, has to play BA spot. Everything jumbled up at wide receiver. Why we need BA back? I think Conley's a solid option to play X. I think he'll do it pretty well. I think what you're going to lose is that dynamic ability that BA brings. And so the 49ers know that can't be the overall answer. So, yeah, Chris Conley is a solid player. I think we'd love him a lot more if he's wide receiver 5, 6, and helping on special teams than wide receiver number 1 out at X. That's just a different thing entirely. So Chris Conley's a solid player, but that's definitely not the answer. The 49ers would have to find a different answer that's not Chris Conley because they need better production out there at wide receiver. And I think Conley would get you a couple catches a game, but we need a guy that can go off for 4 or 5 catches for over 70 yards and put the fear of God into teams that he's going to press you vertically. I'm not sure Conley's that guy at this stage in his career, but I like him. I do. I think he's a tough guy, and I think he gets it. Gets some really good playing time this year if he makes the team. Quest for Six says, I don't think Pittsburgh has anything to offer that will help us this year, right? No. I've seen that the 49ers potentially have asked for Pat Freiermuth, for Pickens. I don't think George Pickens fits what Kyle Shanahan wants at the wide receiver position. Maybe they think they could flip him for something else if they got him in that trade. And also with Minkah Fitzpatrick. So the going rate from what I've seen from all 3 offers, the 49ers want a player that can help their football team, and then they want 2 draft picks. And so far, Pittsburgh hasn't been willing to pony up on that player. Until they do, the 49ers are going to agree to a deal. So, yeah, I haven't seen anything that makes me think that deal is going to get done anytime soon. And, until then, we're just kind of in a holding pattern. So that's where we're at with that. Eventually, though, hopefully the 49ers will figure this thing out with Kalia Davis, and we'll get him back. I'd like to thank you guys all for joining me for the episode. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe, please give it a 5-star rating. This episode was brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. And remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.